So you wanted to talk about how Trump is ruining our electoral system, and let's see what were your exact words? Let's see what Trump and his actions put our democracy in the ditch, and maybe even a little COVID. That's
Yeah,
what we're looking at here today.
yeah. So don't
So
you tell me? I mean, whenever you lose, you're supposed to start the transfer of power. You're supposed to let the other guy come in and start doing his things. I mean, you can always go and fight about, go to court, do a bunch of recounts. You can do all that stuff, but you don't put everything on hold for the country. And then he's basically putting us in the ditch right now because
yeah, I don't.
he wants to hurt us.
Yeah, well, that might be true. I would have to see some evidence that Trump is doing this to hurt the country. Um, just
What kind of
just
evidence
just
would you
because he
need? I
can.
mean, what kind of evidence would you need? He's doing it. We can see it. We can see that Biden doesn't have any access to anything. He's flying on his own money out there because he can't even get to the general fund that's supposed to fund all this transition. Uh, he's got to do everything offline completely with no help. That's not the way Trump came in.
Well, right, but that was a situation uh, where there wasn't any legal challenges to the election. We had the same thing in 2000 where Gore challenged the election, and you know W wasn't didn't have he was delayed until close to mid December to begin a transition. So it's not the end of the world. It's something that has the process has to play out. And do I think anything will come of it? Well, I certainly hope not, because if there's anything to that press conference that was held, I guess last Thursday, where there's this Dominion voter fraud, uh, you know, uh, type of stuff going on in our elections, and there's millions of votes or tens of thousands of votes or even hundreds of thousands of votes that have been manipulated by the system. Then I really hope that's not true. I really hope that's not true. Then
I don't
it's
understand how
been
the Trump. I don't understand how the Trump supporters can always go straight to, National Enquirer or conspiracy status. I mean, if you know how many conspirators it would take in all different regions of the country, different states, different jurisdictions within each state to try to pull something like that off.
Yeah, well, it would take a lot, and if it turns out that happens to be the case, it just goes to show you that you really can't pull that sort of thing off without being caught. And so my position on it is, I think that I would hope that and that was my position with Bush v. Gore, is I want the accurate election result. I want the accurate election results, no matter if it goes against me or for Gore or whatever. I
Yeah.
want the accurate thing. And so if there's if there are these allegations, and there is a possibility of this widespread conspiracy, or this utilization of a certain software that could be manipulated to fix elections, I want that uncovered. I want that investigated.
I do
So,
too.
right. So I don't think anybody's going to get away with anything. I think at the end of the day, what we're going to find is that, yes, perhaps the software had certain connections with something. Um,
Whoa, wait a second.
I,
Connections?
I
What do you mean? Connections with something?
well, connections with governments that have made utility of this software in other countries to manipulate elections. I think
Mm-hmm.
there might be some connections there, uh, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the vote was manipulated here in the United States. It's pretty hard to make the charge that you've got software manipulating an election when Georgia did a hand recount and it matched exactly what the Dominion software came up with in the first place.
Right.
So is there cause for suspicion? 100%. I think there's so much circumstantial evidence that's what got everybody's hackles up. Is there's so much circumstantial evidence? I mean, Donald John Trump just won the second most amount of votes nationwide of any president in history. Yep. The first would be Joe Biden.
That's right.
Okay. And had I told you that before the election that Donald Trump was going to win 73 million votes, what would your prediction of the election been?
I still would have thought Biden was going to win, and I knew it was going to be a big turnout. So, as close as our elections always are, you're bound, since we had the biggest turnout ever, you're bound to have that kind of numbers, right? That both of them could have the most ever. But the trick is Biden still had 6 million more, right?
Yep. And so the thing, I would have had no problem predicting the election if you told me Donald Trump was going to get 72 million votes, 10 million more than he got in 2016. You would have had, I would have bet you everything I have that Trump would have won. I think that's probably a widespread sentiment. Is that how is it that Donald Trump got 10 million more votes, scored the second highest vote total in all of U.S. electoral history, and still lost? You had a hard time convincing a lot of people that something isn't fishy going on here. On top of that, you have the U.S. all the down ballot stuff going on. How is it that we had a red wave down ballot and we lost the top of the ticket? That is absolutely unheard of. That is completely unprecedented. That has never happened in U.S. electoral history ever. Not even close. Not even close. In fact, there has never been a time when the top of the ticket hasn't carried the House and the Senate, and you've had slight majorities in each when the top of the ticket has when the president is Democrat, the House and the Senate are Democrat. Period. End of story. No questions asked.
No, that's true. You got to go back into history further. Maybe in recent history, in the last few presidents, yes, but you go back to history further.
No.
It's actually the opposite.
No, go all the way. No, it's not. It's not. Go all the way back in history. Okay, so we can fact check that, but that's just never happened. You don't see a wave of the other party down ballot win the top of the ticket. Mm-hmm. You just don't see that. It's unprecedented. It's completely
unprecedented. Give me that for a second,
so
but I did look this up for our last thing about down ballots and all that stuff. So I know that's not a fact. Although we've had split ones for the last few presidents, it was actually opposite, where we had a Republican with Democratic Senate and Congress, versus, they were actually split, like Eisenhower and Kennedy and so forth were like that. But the more recent times, we've had these split deals and very, very close, margins across the Congress and across the Senate, right? But I just can't fathom how a person can believe that we have this huge conspiracy trying to take over the United States. And it was homebrewed within several different areas and all that. I can't fathom that. And I really don't understand why Trump, well, let's take another stance too. He just said, how could he have 10 million more than anybody else ever had? That means he had to have 10 million. Did he have 10 million more than Hillary did last time, or 10 million more than he had? 10 million more than he had, right?
He had, yeah.
Yeah. So Hillary had 3 million more than he had last time, right? So that means Joe had to have 13 million more. So it means we had to have a total of 23 million additional voters in this, just rough math. We had to have 23 million additional new voters, people that hadn't voted, people that newly registered voters or something. And that's plausible, don't you think?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely possible. Okay. My point in the whole thing is that the circumstantial evidence is,
The problem is that the circumstantial evidence points to a whole bunch of theories, but the real evidence tells us exactly what the outcome is. And that's where he's losing in court. He's lost in, I don't know, 20 odd, almost 30 court cases trying to prove nothing because he has no evidence when he walks into court or when Sidney and Rudy walk in.
Yeah. Right. So I think that the wise thing to do is just let this play out. There were extreme accusations made at that press conference about Dominion Software and vast voter fraud.
Sure.
If nothing else, I want that completely disproved, because whatever side you fall on this, we want to have confidence in our elections. We don't want any, even though there's all this circumstantial evidence surrounding the election, we want it disproved that there was any chicanery in a widespread way going on. So I'm perfectly fine with them spending this time. Gore spent until about the middle of December, roughly, trying to prove his case, trying to wrangle enough votes to overturn Florida, and our republic survived just fine. I don't think that that Trump and his team are putting anything in the ditch. I just think that that there's enough situations to raise an eyebrow, to say, hey, let's go and investigate this thoroughly, and just say, hey, this was a very, very unique election. That yes, the incumbent president received 10 million more votes than he did last time, but there was enough opposition to him to overcome that. That in virtually every House race, Senate race, whatever you want to call it, the polls and predictions were completely wrong. That down ballot, while Trump lost, the Republicans won. In circumstance upon circumstance, that's fairly peculiar. How does that work? Georgia has never voted for a Democrat. I mean, I've not never, but the shelf life on a Democrat presidential candidate winning Georgia is not in our memories, at least.
Right.
So this is all worth investigating. It's all worth investigating.
But you just said the Georgia one that they went back and checked it and everything was fine. So you feel confident with Georgia, right?
I do.
Okay.
So, but let them present their cases in the cases in court. I mean, we're still only 3 weeks out from the election, and recall in 2000 we were 5 or 6 weeks out from the election until finally the Supreme Court put a stop to it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the Gore campaign that put a stop to that. Right. It was the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So that if that happens in this circumstance, that's the way it goes. And let's not forget that the Dems spent the last 4 years trying to overturn the 2016 election with no evidence whatsoever. That's all the Democrats have been doing the past 4 years. Forget about your health care or anything else. Forget about infrastructure or anything that might be important for the people. They've spent all of their time the past 4 years trying to overturn the 2016 election. That's what they've done.
I don't recall one court case of the Dems trying to overturn anything about votes on the election or electoral college or anything like that. I do remember when Trump got impeached. I do remember when he was investigated for all the other things. I remember all that, but that had nothing to do with overturning an election because he was elected, he was inaugurated. That was just trying to rein him in on trying to get him to do something. Trying to expose what he'd already done.
Okay, sure. So in one way or another, the Democrats have spent the last 4 years trying to get Trump out of office. Maybe not overturn but that for all intents and purposes overturns an election, does it not?
Didn't everybody try to get Obama out of office? I mean, we're going to keep on going backwards. Let's talk about
okay,
this
so
here.
when did what I recall is the Republicans took impeachment for Obama completely off the table. They said that. Mr. McConnell said that.
He had nothing to impeach him for.
Right. And they didn't have anything to impeach. And they didn't have anything to impeach. They didn't have anything to impeach Trump over. Not one thing.
Well, you
Not
know
one
what?
shred of evidence.
Why is
Not
Trump's
one.
buddies all in jail?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but all I know is that they did not produce one shred of evidence
All right.
that would have that would have been impeachable in any other situation.
All right. Okay.
Not one. So
I believe he was impeached
so
legally,
let's not.
and
So
obviously
what
other people
I'm
did
looking
too.
for, what I'm looking forward to is if we can just get to a point where Republicans and Democrats aren't trying to overturn elections, I'll be happy with that.
Well,
Because I don't think you're not going to see that from the Republicans. Now, what you might see is Nancy Pelosi trying to 25th Amendment Biden out of office. I think you might see a little bit of that going on.
may not need to. We'll just see what happens with his health. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if he
he
has a
might
problem, if he has a problem, then we got to. He's going to have to do what he needs
If he
to
has
do.
a
Maybe he'll
problem,
say,
the man can't put two sentences together.
I don't think you watch him enough. I think all you watch is sound bites. But anyway, I can tell you, how come Trump in his whole life has either bought or bullied his way to winning, or his definition of winning, and he's come to a point today that he can't do that, and because he's been voted down, he lost, and he's not coming to terms with it. We're 3 weeks after the election. He isn't cooperating with anything. He won't even have a press conference. He won't let his press secretary have a press conference. Nobody will answer questions, not even Pompeo. Everybody's completely closed-lipped about anything to do with the government whatsoever for the last 3 weeks. Why is that?
Yeah.
I mean, he had pressers almost every day, all through October, all the way till Election Day. Now the whole thing is locked down. Why is that?
Well, if I'm a lawyer, if I'm one of Trump's lawyers, what I'm going to tell the administration is stop talking. Don't say a word. Don't say anything. Don't make public appearances. Don't make press conferences. We're in the middle of a legal proceeding, and my advice to you is don't do any of that. And sounds like they're taking that advice.
But they got a country to run.
You don't have to do press conferences to run a country.
No, but they've got people to answer to as far as us, the American citizen. We want to know what's going on, and that's why they need to have press conferences.
Right. But the thing of it is that if I were Trump's lawyer, I would say, yes, the American people have a right to know what's going on. But right now, you can't give them a straight answer about what's going on because we haven't had the opportunity to present what's going on. We've got to let this play out in court. Then once it plays out in court, then we can all come out on the press conference and say, okay, here's what the court decided. Mm-hmm. Here's the direction things are going. And then after that, we can speak about it. But we wait for the process to play out.
He can't win by tweet. That's for sure. He has to win he has to win by the votes. That's all there is to it. I have faith that even complete right-leaning Supreme Court is going to hold up the Constitution and do the right thing if presented with something if he has evidence. Why hasn't he presented the evidence in 3 weeks?
Well,
why has he got somebody like Giuliani? Why has everybody else basically fired him and backed out and not be his lawyer? And you've got Giuliani and this Sydney gal are the only two people that are flying all over the country now, putting together. Well, of course, they got people helping them. Obviously, they're the mouthpiece. They're the ones that show up in court, though, to argue the case. But they have nothing to argue with. Every judge has thrown them out and told them that it's basically a frivolous suit. So why is that?
Well,
why don't they have something? Where's the evidence?
Right. Well, that's what's got to happen. That's my question too. The Powell and Giuliani have got to file a court proceeding and present the evidence. That's what's got to happen.
But they've done almost 30 of them and they haven't presented any evidence. So
where's the
evidence?
They haven't filed suit. They haven't filed suit on their claims about Dominion, and that's the one we're really waiting on because the other lawsuits are insubstantial. You're exactly right, and my hope is that what Powell is seeing or what Powell has been presented with as far as the Dominion software goes is something she's misinterpreting, and the judge is going to see that, and it's going to be proven that that we had a free and fair election. That's my hope, right. And that Biden's going to be president. That's my hope.
So
because if
even her, she even screwed up Wayne County, Michigan with Wayne County, Minnesota, because she doesn't know the abbreviations for states.
Okay, well that's anyway. So
whoa, wait a second. Oh yeah, well anyway, come on, man. What's going on with it? This is like a little circus that's going on. This is not America.
Well, okay. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I don't think what's been going on the past 4 years has been exactly exemplary.
Hold on, let's not go back to the past. We're talking about this particular thing now.
So it's cool. So it's cool for the Democrats to do nothing for the past 4 years, but try to get rid of Donald Trump. That's all they've done. They haven't done a damn thing other than that.
I think they put 400, almost 500 bills on Mitch McConnell's desk that never saw the Senate. How about they did that?
No, but all their energy went into.
No. I'm telling you, maybe their energy that you saw went into impeaching Donald Trump, but the rest of their energy, that other 90% of their energy, went into putting bills on Mitch McConnell's desk that never saw the Senate.
That's really difficult when all you've got to do is throw up some bullshit bill in front of the House and have a bunch of wildly left-leaning representatives vote for it and send it over to McConnell. That's not difficult work. Did
McConnell put any bills forward?
And the House Democrats spent no time negotiating with Trump. None. They spent no time negotiating with the Senate. None. There was no negotiation on anything. Trump wanted to do an infrastructure plan, which under normal circumstances probably could have gotten wide bipartisan support. Trump wanted to do that. That was a Trump thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't happen. Trump was ready to, he said it openly. Hey, I'm ready to give complete amnesty to all the dreamers.
Yep.
But here's no negotiation on that. Okay. Whatever Trump wanted, the Democrats were against. That's how it went down. On top of that, they spent their entire time and the majority of their energy as leaders trying to discredit Trump as president instead of saying, okay, we screwed something up here. Trump got elected. He's the president. Either we could spend all of our time and energy doing this, trying to discredit his election, which was deemed to be fair election. President Trump got fairly elected. Right? There was no Russian interference. Trump did not collude with anybody to get elected.
They used Dominion when he got elected too. So if it's bad, it's bad, right?
Well,
maybe he never got elected. There you go.
So we can talk about that.
So let me ask you something. In our system of checks and balances in Congress and Senate and President, who makes the laws and who owns the purse strings?
Well,
who writes the laws?
The House owns who writes the laws, who's supposed to write the laws, are the three branches of government.
No.
Right.
The Congress writes the laws, and then they send it up to the Senate. The Senate either approves it or rewrites it, sends it back to them until they have
all
right.
Okay.
And then the president, after it's all done, the president gets involved, and he can either approve it or veto it. That's the way it's written in the Constitution. It's not that Nancy Pelosi needs to negotiate with the Secretary of Treasury that's under the president's thumb for our COVID money. That is not how it works. This is completely out of bounds. And what you just told me about the immigration thing with the dreamers and all that, Trump can throw all that stuff out and say, oh, I told him I'd do this. I told him I'd do this. But at what cost? What else did he have hanging on there? And he never got it done because whenever they offered them a bill, Mitch McConnell wouldn't even bring it to the floor for them to review, for them to rewrite or negotiate or anything. The Senate sat on their hands the entire time, 4 years. and they let Trump steamroll the Congress back and forth. So crazy Nancy could be the one that's holding everybody up, but it's not. It was Mitch McConnell, and you know that.
No, I don't know that, and I just completely disagree with your assessment of that situation, because you know as well as I do that the Democrats in the House try to attach all kinds of nonsense to bills like an infrastructure bill, like a Dreamers bill, like a COVID relief bill that completely makes no sense whatsoever, and that they know the Senate Republicans aren't going to agree to, and that's why McConnell doesn't bring it to the floor, because crazy Nancy attaches bullshit to those bills, which stripped of that would be perfectly fine bills. But the Dems have to try to attach all their political, radical left-wing nonsense to very common sense bills like a Dreamers bill, like an infrastructure bill, like a COVID bill. She does this every time so she can appease somebody like the vaunted Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, so she doesn't get outflanked by the left wing of her party. And of course McConnell is not going to put that kind of bill on the floor because he knows it's going to fail. They are not going to get the Republican votes in the Senate for that kind of nonsense. They've got to bring across a common sense bill without all the BS pork attached to it. That's what's going on, and you know it.
I give you credit for that one. Is that there's always pork attached to it, but it's pork from both sides. You know that. But
no, it's not. Okay, name the pork in the COVID bill. Name it.
Well, didn't they do something about a museum renovation or something like that?
Yeah, you're grasping. What McConnell wants is a $5 billion COVID bill that is very targeted towards small business, and that's it. There's nothing attached to that. It's very simplistic. It's very minimalistic. That's it. Okay, but Pelosi's not gonna sign off on that. Why? Because she's not gonna get all of her bullshit pork attached to it. That's why.
What pork is she asking for? She's asking for municipal help and state help.
Yeah, she's asking for blue state cities and states to have their pensions bailed out. That's what she's shooting for, especially California. She wants California especially bailed out. That's why she wants $2 trillion so California can be bailed out of all these nonsense pension situations they're embroiled in. Because they're in such debt right now, and they've got so many people fleeing that state that they got no tax base. The same thing is happening in New York. They're screwed in those two states. As far they're not going to be able to pay pensions up there. That's why Pelosi's trying to bring forth these bills, because these states have gotten themselves into such financial woes because of their crappy policies, and now Pelosi's trying to attach that to a COVID relief bill. That's bullshit.
Which two states are the ones that provide the most to the federal government as far as monetarily?
Well, of course, New York and California.
Well, there you go.
Because they have the most income. Oh, there you go. But why is it?
So when they need help, why don't you want to help them? Why don't you want to help them when they need help? Huh?
But New York and California can't put together financial budget packages that keep their state solvent. They've got all that money. They've got all that tax base up there running around. It's not only does that tax base go to the federal government, not only are they the largest contributors, but that tax base goes to the state as well. Mm-hmm. All right.
It does.
And so why is it that the two
richest contributors, but they're positive cash flow to the government, not negative? I mean, if you want to use that analogy, why don't you take like Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, and tell them that, hey, you only get what you put in from now on, right?
Well, I'm not so sure that's not true. I'd have to look at the numbers, but
I'm just telling you, they take out a whole lot more than they put in. That's why they voted for McConnell again, to stay in there, because he touts it even in his. I live on the border of Kentucky. I see his ads. He's done more for Kentucky than anybody. He is their golden ring that they're hanging on to, so they get more money into their state from the federal government.
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's why people vote for McConnell at all.
Oh, I think so.
That's not why I vote Republican.
Yeah.
I don't vote for Republicans so they can get more money to my state. I don't need more money to my state. I think most Republicans vote for Republicans because they're hoping that that Republican will act in such a way that keeps the federal government out of their way.
So
That's it.
which how many how many how many states are positive cash flow versus negative cash flow? Are they mostly like blue states that put into the federal government and the red states take out?
I haven't looked at the numbers. That would be an interesting study to see if if the federal government is making money off of, say, New York. I would if they are, I would say it would be marginal. In other words, for the amount of money that New York State gets from the federal government compared to what it puts in, I would say it'd be marginal. Might be something to look into. I don't know the numbers on
We'll
that.
have to look that one up after our meeting today, but I can tell you it's
Yep.
substantial. In California, the
Yeah.
same way. But and I can tell you that the other ones, that are getting money from the state, all are mostly red states. It's like the red states are the welfare queens of our United States.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, what are we talking about here? We're talking about citizens paying into the federal government, right?
Hmm.
We're talking about the richest Americans who live in New York and L.A. No question about it.
Okay.
No question about
Okay.
it. The richest Americans.
Hmm.
They should they not be contributing more into the federal government?
Well, they
I
should pay
mean,
more taxes. I'm okay with that.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And so
But now
if
you're
it were
getting back to
discovered,
democratic principles or socialist principles that
oh,
we got the rich people
right. So
paying more and the poor
right.
people
So
get out
yeah,
more.
but yeah, but you're arguing. So you're arguing against that. You're
No,
saying
I'm
that
not arguing
California.
against it. I'm just
Oh, you're
giving you a
not,
fact.
because you just said no. You just said that New York and California, because they pay more than everybody else, should be bailed out in this COVID package. That's what you said.
We bail everybody else out. Why shouldn't we bail them out
No,
whenever
no.
they need to bail out?
What other states? What other states are we bailing out their pension funds?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up just like you.
Yeah, we're not.
Check it.
There's not any other states that have done that, because New York and California has crappy policies because they have Democrat leaders who don't think along economic lines, and they've
Hmm.
guaranteed these pensions, and now they're in a pickle, and they're trying to use COVID to try to bail themselves out. Okay, so now
Well, I think they're bailing out more than just they're bailing out more than just the pensions, because as I recall, they're bailing out a lot of cities that are just running out of cash because they don't have the revenue coming in right now. I mean, I know that where I live, my property taxes have gone down for the last couple of times. So, I mean, they hit a height probably in 2010, I think was the worst case of it, and then they've gone down. Of course, they went up very fast, and now they're going down very slow. But
yeah,
I know that our cities don't have as much money as they had before,
right,
and
all right, so
especially after COVID, because
yeah,
they're not getting
well,
the revenue from their
let's just
sales
say
tax.
for instance that yeah, let's just say for instance that it might be fair or equitable to say, okay, New York and California contribute to the federal treasury more than any other two states. And it might be a thought to say, hey, they're having some financial troubles because they're tax based and this and the other thing. Hey, let's look at returning some of that money that they contribute in to those
Hmm.
states to help them out, get their budgets balanced. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Let Pelosi bring that bill to the floor and say, look, New York and California are in some real financial trouble, and they give us more than we give back to them. And here's the margins. And
Hmm.
so let's do a bill where let's give that back to them, help them balance their budgets. And I could be
You sound so
100% on board.
reasonable now.
100% on board with that. Okay, but that's not what she's doing. Okay,
Okay.
what McConnell was talking about is, hey, let's do a very targeted COVID bill right now.
Hmm.
$500 billion. Let's not worry about the debt that New York and California are in right now. We know they are. We know they got problems, but this is not the place to do that, for
Right.
one. And for two, what's it going to hurt if we just do a very targeted half $500 billion COVID bill? What's that going to hurt? And why are you, Nancy Pelosi, holding this up? Why is it going to hurt to just do this little one? And then maybe we can talk about the bigger stuff later. Let's just do this little thing
You
that'll
know
help
why?
everybody.
You
Why?
know why? Because there will be no maybe. Because there is no negotiation with Mitch right now, and you know it.
Well,
If
no, I
she
disagree.
does that, she loses any kind of negotiating stance that she has.
Okay, and there you go. And there you go.
Right.
So Pelosi's worried about bailing out New York and California, and she sees this as her only opportunity to bail out New York and California. And there you
Right.
go. And no, and there will not be a Republican I will ever vote for again if they say, oh, well, poor Nancy, she doesn't have this is her chip in the game to
Hmm.
bail out New York and California, and so we need to. I would never vote for another Republican who voted for that bill again, ever, because
Hmm.
I don't play that crap.
Okay.
And
But you have
that's
to.
what I
That's
don't
politics.
care.
That's
No, it's not.
politics. Well, you know
Well,
what?
it
If it
shouldn't
wasn't,
be.
if it, you know what? How this all started was that somebody said, just do this little thing, and we'll do your other thing later. And then later came, and then it didn't happen. So now they put the bills, and they wad up a whole bunch of. They wad up the military, the you know infrastructure. They put everything into these bills, and it's all a huge negotiation. That's why these bills are thousands of pages long.
And the
And
Republicans
that's
I
from
vote.
both sides. That's not one sided. You can blame Nancy all you want, but that's both
Well,
sides.
I agree with that, but the Republicans I vote for don't play that game.
Uh,
Ted Cruz
I,
doesn't play that game.
who?
Ted Cruz doesn't play that game.
Oh my gosh.
Give me
Ted
an
Cruz is
example.
definitely a politician.
He's a politician, but he
Yeah.
doesn't play. The thing of it is that's you know I again I am the type of person who would say that there ought to be a constitutional amendment that if your bill is more than two standard Word document pages long,
Mhm.
doesn't can't count.
So tell me
Two
what
pages.
bill Ted Cruz sponsored that was passed.
He passed a bill, really important bill, I think, where Russia was trying to run an undersea pipeline into Germany
Hmm.
with oil, and we're trying to tamp down Russia's economy right now. He passed a bill that prevented that.
Mm.
He sponsored and saw that bill passed in a bipartisan way to prevent that from happening. Not only because I mean,
How did he prevent it from happening? And when it's a deal
well,
between Russia
I
and
can't remember.
Germany.
Right, I can't remember all the details. But it was something to do with upholding some sanctions that were already in place
Hmm.
with Germany and Russia, and it was a threat to Germany, really, where we said, okay, if you guys do this, there's going to be consequences to it.
Yeah.
And his, believe it or not, when I heard him talk about this, I couldn't believe it, because he doesn't really lead with this very often. His number one concern was they weren't the way that Russia was putting this pipeline in under the sea was super unsafe. They already had several people die. It was a threat to the wildlife in the north. I mean, this is what he was talking about. I was like, is this Ted Cruz? Who am I? I mean, he was really talking about the environmental effects of it. And then on top of that, he was talking about how this was going to just pour so much money into the Russian economy,
Hmm.
that this was something he really felt like needed to be defeated for the national security of Western Europe and the United States. So that's just one that's kind of obscure, but that's just one that kind of stuck out to me. I thought was really interesting because again, he went on and on about the people that died trying to put this thing in because the Russians don't give a damn whether or not people die while they're trying to make money, and he talked about the yeah it was interesting. It was interesting.
So what does this bill actually do? When his bill got signed and everybody was happy with it, and did
Yeah,
he actually stop the construction of the pipeline?
he did. Yeah, they did. They were able to get it stopped because Germany was yeah. If I recall correctly, it was a threat to Germany. It was it's to Merkel basically saying, hey, don't do
Yep.
this because if you do, then we've got this other shoe that's going to drop. And again, I can't remember all the details.
Yeah, I remember when they were doing a natural gas pipeline, twin 40-inch natural, because I worked in the oil and gas industry, right? And they were doing a
Sure.
twin 40-inch natural gas line from Russia to Germany. I didn't know about an oil undersea line, but and I think they finished the natural gas pipelines over there. And I remember whenever the senators popped up, and I don't remember if it was Cruz or not, but I do remember when the senators popped up that they wanted to stop that because they didn't want to pump money into the Russian economy. But that's the whole thing. That's why we stop. That's why we have the sanctions with other countries, is to stop their money flow, so
Yeah.
we can try to cripple
Well,
their economy.
yeah. Well, and I think that was the biggest motivation with Cruz, even though he might have led with there's him being a politician. He was talking about the dangers, you know. I doubt that. I think the biggest thing was he really wanted to hinder Russia's ability to sell their gas and oil. That's really what he was after. And I agree with that 100% because we want to sell our gas and oil, right? Because we got this surplus now. We're energy independent, and that protects our national interests, and then plus that that prevents Russia from gaining a foothold in Western Europe, especially in a key country like Germany. So I thought it was a wise move.
So I disagree completely, but we're diverting off from our thing. But anyway.
Okay, sure.
I'm more of a globalist than you are, but I think it's none of our business where Germany buys their natural gas or oil. But
that's fairly libertarian of you, but
no, that's not libertarian of me. It's more globalist. But anyway, we diverge from what our topic was today. We're really getting off topic here. But anyway,
that's good.
So going back to what we're doing with the bills and stuff. So what do you think all the bills were that Nancy sent up? Do you think they were just a bunch of AOC mumbly bumbly or something like that she sent over? Or do you think there's probably maybe something out of this whole 4 years that Nancy set up that maybe Mitch should have looked at? Or should we just say that Trump never passed anything? Because how many actual bills, real bills? I'm not talking about executive orders. I'm not talking about little sanction bills or something. I mean, something that really was meaningful for the United States. How many bills did Trump sign?
Precisely one. Precisely one.
That's 4 years worth of work and got one bill.
And how many bills did Obama sign in 8 years that were significant?
Well, one great big one, right, with the ACA.
Yeah, and I would say one great big one for Trump in 4 years was the tax cuts.
Oh, well, I don't agree with his tax cuts because it wasn't a cut.
Okay, I don't agree with the ACA. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's what I found, and this is where in some ways we could talk about 9/11 and that sort of thing, but this is where I would largely say that W was a very unsuccessful president because he point to one bill that they passed that he signed. Nothing. Yeah. You look at Clinton, name one bill that was passed and signed. Welfare reform, huge, big deal. Okay.
Right.
Reagan, you can point again, tax reform. You can point to Reagan, big tax that he negotiated with O'Neill, and that was insane that happened, right?
But it turned out to be a failure, though.
I completely disagree with that. Yeah, I think Reagan's economy completely set up the past 40 years. I mean, without Reagan, we wouldn't, oh, God forbid. I don't even want to think about what life would be like without a Reagan administration. Okay. I think Reagan laid the foundation for the United States to survive since 1980 until now. Okay, we can talk about that maybe another time. But but you're still talking about in 4-year, 8-year administrations. If an administration could get one signature bill passed, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
In fact, you're in really good shape. So Obama did it. He got his ACA passed. He made it happen. Okay. Trump got his tax reform passed. I wouldn't count W's because it was just so milquetoast. It was kind of like whatever. So I wouldn't count that. But Clinton with welfare reform, that was bipartisan. That was huge. I thought that was really helpful to the country. I thought it was a great move on Clinton's part. And then Reagan, I thought, his along with his foreign policy, his domestic policy, I thought was really a bedrock for the country going forward. So I would say one bill. Yeah, Trump did one thing that was good. I mean, actually signed it.
We'll see if it's good because Reagan's didn't all work out that good when it was said and done. He had to go back and fix some things, and I got a feeling we're going to have to fix some things with what Trump did. So,
well, we might, and I just again, I don't. I I would I would see. Here's one thing I love about Reagan is that he cut domestic spending. He was able to cut domestic spending with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat House.
Hmm.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
I would love to see a Republican with the brass cojones to come along and say, I'm going to cut spending. I mean, I think that era is done. I think we're just going to keep spending. It's just going to, just going to depend on what we want to spend money on. That's
Right.
all.
Hmm. Well, for a while